The clock ticks past midnight. The world outside is quiet, wrapped in shadows and the hush of sleeping streets. But inside your room, a small glow keeps the night alive. It hums from the corner, that old CRT television screen flickering with static, soft enough to feel like stars caught in a glass box. The kind of glow that doesn't just light the room, it fills it with comfort. You sink deeper into the blankets. The bed creaks in all the right ways, warm and heavy with pillows, and your hands curl around the remote. Each click feels like opening a secret door. Each channel shift like wandering down a hallway you half remember from childhood. Tonight isn't about sleep right away. Tonight is about the marathon. The late-night Cartoon Network run that seemed endless, episode after episode, rerun after rerun, until the line between show and dream blurred into something magical. The air carries that faint buzz of nostalgia. Maybe you imagine the smell of popcorn or the sound of a fridge humming in the kitchen. The TV keeps you company. Its glow paints the posters on the walls in soft blues and purples, and your stuffed toys or action figures seem to lean closer, just as curious about what's on next. This isn't just TV. This is a portal, a doorway to every cartoon that ever tucked you in after a long day. You know the lineup. You've seen it before, but somehow it never feels old. Each cartoon comes back like an old friend. Courage barking nervously at shadows, Dexter mumbling about science, while Dee Dee's giggles bounce in the background. The ED's chasing jawbreakers under the sleepy glow of a summer cul-de-sac streetlight. Blossom, Bubbles, and Buttercup floating above a safe Townsville. Grim shaking his skull, Billy laughing too loud. The rhythm of Cartoon Network's world stitched together into one cozy midnight. The remote rests on your chest. You don't have to choose just yet. The static between channels feels like a dream in itself. Soft fuzz, glowing specks, little echoes of characters peeking through as if wait their turn. That's the magic of this midnight marathon. You don't need to rush. You don't even need to stay awake the whole way. The shows will keep rolling, looping into forever. The blanket feels heavier now. The hum of the TV quieter, almost like a lullaby. In this room, time is gentle. It's not racing forward, it's folding backward, back into the 2000s, into simpler nights when your biggest choice was which cartoon to stay awake for, and when sleep always arrived with the warm comfort of a channel still playing in the background. The night stretches on, endless and safe, and with one more click of the remote, the first dream begins. Before we dive in, if this midnight marathon makes you feel cozy, safe, or even just a little nostalgic, don't forget to tap like, share it with a friend who misses the Cartoon Network nights too, and hit subscribe so you never miss the next dreamy rerun here on Pillow Time Network. It always begins with a whisper, not loud enough to scare you, not soft enough to ignore, a whisper that floats somewhere between dream and memory. That's where Courage the Cowardly Dog lives, in that strange middle space of the night. Picture this, the house in nowhere, alone, quiet, standing under a sky that seems too big. The kind of sky that makes you feel small but safe, like the universe is tucking you in. Out there in the middle of all that nothing, Courage paces the front porch, ears twitching, nose lifting to every strange sound the desert carries. Lightning flickers far away like the sky is yawning. You can almost hear it, can't you? The creak of the windmill turning, the faint hum of crickets. that lonely whistle of the night breeze, and inside Muriel hums a tune as if bedtime is the most normal thing in the world, while Eustace grumbles in his chair, newspaper slipping down as he dozes. But Courage never sleeps easy, not here, not in nowhere. That's why we loved him, isn't it? Because Courage was always afraid, and yet he never stopped protecting the people he loved. Even when shadows stretched too long, even when monsters with sharp teeth or glowing eyes came out of the dark, Courage faced them, trembling, shaking, but never running. And maybe, late at night, that's why the show felt so comforting, because deep down, we're all a little like Courage, awake when the world feels strange, worrying when everything goes quiet, listening to whispers in the dark. There's something dreamlike about watching Courage at midnight. The colors were softer, stranger, pinks and purples bleeding into the desert sand. That eerie computer animation that sometimes appeared, bending reality just enough to make you wonder if you were awake or already dreaming. Yeah, as kids, it scared us, but as adults, there's a gentleness in it. A reminder that fear is never the whole story. Fear is just the beginning. The heart comes after. You might remember an episode, Courage Alone, padding through the halls, the floorboards creaking under his tiny paws. The TV left on in the living room, flickering static shadows on the wall. Something calls his name from the other room, soft but insistent, a whisper. Not real, not safe, but still. Courage goes. He always goes. That's the whisper we feel here tonight. Courage's midnight whispers, not a scream, not a jump scare, but a murmur that drifts into your dreams and asks you to follow. And maybe you do. Think back to the way Courage would whimper, mumble, stammer in his little voice. His nonsense babble somehow told us everything we needed to know. He didn't need full words. We understood his fear, his love, his determination. In some way, those mutters sounded like the very language of dreams. Half-formed thoughts tumbling over each other, making sense only because of how they felt, not what they said. That's why Courage fits perfectly into this midnight marathon, because he was midnight. Dark skies, eerie winds, shadows stretching long across the desert floor, and yet, in the middle of it all, he was a soft, small presence. A reminder that we can be afraid and brave at the same time. So tonight, as you lie under your own covers, listening to the faint buzz of this cozy rerun, Courage is here with you, whimpering, whispering, watching the horizon for monsters, but mostly keeping you safe. Do you remember the dreamlike way episodes would end? Sometimes the villains were defeated, sometimes they just drifted away like a passing nightmare. Sometimes Courage saved the day. Other times the danger never truly left. But always the last shot was of that house, alone, still standing, a little pink dog breathing out a sigh, curling beside Muriel's chair, finally resting. That's the image I want you to hold. That lonely house glowing faintly in the distance, a beacon of strangeness, but also of safety, a place where fear and comfort meet. Because maybe that's what midnight is, not the scariest hour, not the safest, just the in-between, the whisper. When you think about it, Courage's midnight world feels a lot like falling asleep with the TV on. Static, buzzing low, colors flickering, shadows stretching across your walls. Half of you knows it's just cartoons. The other half is already dreaming. The villains, cats in top hats, zombie kings, alien chickens, they feel larger than life at first. But by the time you're drifting off, they're just shapes in the haze fading into your imagination. Not gone, not dangerous, just softened. Courage doesn't have to fight them anymore, not tonight. Tonight, they're just stories to keep you company while you drift. And here's the secret of courage's midnight whispers. They don't want to scare you. They just want to remind you that fear is part of dreaming. That bravery is too. So as the episode fades, as the desert stretches endlessly into the night, courage curls up by the door. Lightning flickers one more time. The whisper fades, and you, tucked under your own blanket, are left with that strange but comforting silence. The kind of silence only courage could give. Sometimes the scariest part of courage wasn't the monsters at all. It was the quiet, those long pauses between sounds, the way the windmill would stop turning for just a moment. The crickets would hush, and you were left listening to nothing but your own breath. That silence could stretch forever, like the desert itself. And yet, there was comfort in it. A silence that wrapped around you like a blanket, whispering that you weren't alone. Courage was still there, ears twitching, ready for whatever came next. Maybe that's why the show lingers so deeply in our memories. It wasn't just about being scared. It was about the warmth that followed. Muriel's gentle laugh after a close call, Courage's relieved sigh as the danger passed. Even Eustace's grumpy snore in his chair was its own kind of reassurance. No matter how bizarre the night became, no matter how many shadows tried to creep in, the house always stood. Life always returned to its sleepy rhythm. And as you lie here now, listening, drifting, you can almost feel that rhythm inside yourself. The hum of the television glow, the soft pulse of a cartoon soundtrack, the steady, safe heartbeat of a little pink dog who never gave up. Fear, comfort, silence all braided together like the strands of a dream you don't want to wake from. So maybe that's the true gift of courage's midnight whispers. Not to frighten you, not even to protect you, but to keep you company in the quiet hours, when the world feels both too big and just small enough to hold in your hand. The TV flickers, the glow softens, and suddenly we're not in the desert anymore. No windmill, no shadows, no whispering dog. Instead, we're outside. Barefoot on a sun-bleached cul-de-sac. The air is heavy with that late afternoon warmth, the kind of summer heat that makes everything feel slow, stretchy, and infinite. And there they are. 3 familiar shapes wobbling across the screen. Ed, and Eddie. The trio that never really changed, no matter how many episodes you watched. Somehow, they were always chasing jawbreakers, always building schemes, always tumbling into the same failures, the same pratfalls, the same neighbor kids shaking their heads. But you didn't mind, because that was the magic. Every episode felt like it was caught in a loop, not in a way that was boring, but in a way that was comforting. You knew what was coming, the slapstick, the arguing, the laughter, but you still leaned closer to the glow of the screen. Eddie's voice cutting through the haze, Double D fussing, notebook in hand, Ed mumbling nonsense, eyes wide with simple joy. It was chaos wrapped in safety, predictable unpredictability. And as you drift here in the quiet of your room, it's easy to imagine slipping right into their world, laying in the grass of that cul-de-sac, listening to cicadas buzz, the clouds above moving so slowly they might as well be painted. You could fall asleep there between the cracks of the sidewalk chalk, and the loop would keep playing on without you. The neighborhood itself was its own kind of dream. Remember how empty it always was? No adults, no real world beyond those fences. Just kids, bikes, and plans that never worked. That cul-de-sac became a whole universe, and the longer you stared, the more it felt like time froze there. Endless summer, endless sunlight, endless schemes. That's why it felt almost hypnotic, because you knew deep down that this neighborhood wasn't anywhere you could visit. It only lived inside the glow of Cartoon Network, and every rerun pulled you back into that same infinite loop. The voices of the EDs echo through your memory. Eddie, always scheming, "This one's gonna work, guys." Double D, adjusting his hat, cautioning against the flaws he already saw. And Ed, grinning wide, ready to follow his friends anywhere, no matter how ridiculous. It was loud, silly, and slapstick, but under all the yelling and chasing, there was a strange peace, a rhythm, a loop you could relax into like the hum of a fan on a summer night. Jawbreakers. Do you remember the way they looked? Bigger than a fist, impossibly shiny and almost glowing. They weren't just candy, they were treasure. The kind of treasure you dreamed about as a kid. The one impossible wish that could make everything better. The EDs never really got them, not in the way they wanted. The candy was always just out of reach or too big to carry or rolled away into the gutter. But maybe that was the point. The chase itself was the comfort. Because if the EDs ever got exactly what they wanted, the loop would have to end. And you didn't want it to end. Not really. There's something strangely dreamy about slapstick when you think about it. The way characters get knocked down, flattened, stretched out only to bounce right back again. In Ed, and Eddie, that bounce was everything. No matter what went wrong, and everything went wrong, they always came back for more. It's the cartoon promise. You can fall, fail, crash, and explode, but the loop resets. The game starts again. And lying here, drifting deeper, maybe that's why this show feels like the perfect dream companion. Because isn't sleep the same? Every night, the world tumbles into chaos, reshaping itself into strange, nonsensical stories. And every morning, you bounce back, ready to start again. The EDs lived in that dream logic permanently. Their world was as bizarre and looping as your own half-asleep thoughts. A surreal neighborhood where nothing ever truly ended. Maybe that's why it still feels so cozy to revisit. When you think back on it, you don't remember a single plot in detail. You remember the mood, the laughter, the sun, the loop. It's like pressing rewind on your own childhood summers. Back when the days felt endless, the rules were blurry, and all that mattered was finding something fun, even if that something was just riding bikes in circles or building a scam that would never, ever work. That's the heart of Ed and Eddie's endless summer loop. Not the jawbreakers, not the scams, not even the pranks. It was the feeling of being stuck in time in the best way possible. And maybe, right now, that's exactly where you want to be. But maybe what made Ed and Eddie so unforgettable wasn't just the noise or the chaos or even the jawbreakers. It was the quiet between the noise. Oh, those still shots of the cul-de-sac with cicadas buzzing in the background. That weird, scratchy animation style, the lines always wiggling, as if the world itself was vibrating with restless energy. It felt alive. Not polished, not perfect, but alive in the same way your own childhood memories feel alive. A little shaky, a little surreal, but still warm. And do you remember how sometimes the EDs would just wander? No big scheme, no huge plan, just hanging out. Ed talking about chickens. Double D cleaning something that didn't need cleaning. Eddie trying to whip up a quick money-making idea. Those were the episodes that felt the sleepiest. Not because they were boring, but because they slowed you down. They let you live in the cul-de-sac for a little while as though you were one of the kids leaning on a fence watching it all happen. And maybe that's why, even now, the memory is so soothing. The world outside was complicated, but here it was simple. Sun, sidewalk, friends, an impossible candy dream. That's all it ever needed to be. And as you sink further into the glow of the TV, the loop carries you with it. The same schemes, the same failures, the same laughter. But instead of getting tired, you only feel more at peace. Because this is the kind of loop you want to stay inside. Like a summer afternoon that never fades. Like a rerun that never ends. Like a memory that plays back every time you close your eyes. And as the EDs chase their next impossible dream off into the background, you can smile because you know they'll always be there, waiting in the cul-de-sac, forever looping, forever summer. That's the end of this stretch of our Cartoon Network Midnight Marathon. The cul-de-sac fades, the voices echo away, and the EDs keep chasing their impossible prize somewhere in the background. Endless laughter, endless summer, endless loop. And now the channel flickers again. Time to see what comes next. Screen glows again. A flicker, a hum. You can almost hear the narrator's voice, deep and dramatic. The city of Townsville. But tonight, Townsville doesn't feel busy. It feels drowsy. Streetlights blink like heavy eyelids. Buildings slump against the starry sky as though even skyscrapers need their rest. And at the very center of it all, three little silhouettes float above it: Blossom, Bubbles, and Buttercup. The Powerpuff Girls. The protectors of Townsville. The ones who always wake up even when the city sleeps. But tonight, even they seem slower. Even superheroes need bedtime. When you think about the Powerpuff Girls, maybe you remember the explosions, the chaotic fights, Mojo Jojo screaming until his words twisted into knots, the Rowdy Rough Boys crashing through the clouds, the monsters that rose taller than skyscrapers. But under all that noise, there was always a rhythm, a lull, a softness you could slip into if you listened closely. The pastel colors of Townsville weren't sharp. They were hazy, dreamy, almost like chalk. Pink skies, green streaks, blue bursts of light. Everything had a way of glowing, even in the middle of battle. It was never just fighting. It was dancing. The swirls of motion, the trails of color, the way Blossom floated so gracefully, or how Bubbles twirled with her giggles echoing behind her. Even Buttercup, with her punches and her gritted teeth, moved like a rhythm you could tap your foot to. If you were lying in bed, half asleep, those fights looked like fireworks. Not scary, not dangerous. Just comforting bursts of light in the night sky. And when the smoke cleared, the girls would hover together holding hands, their giant eyes shining like little nightlights. Safe, secure, the city tucked back into its blanket. Blossom, the leader, always thinking, always planning. If Townsville was a dream, Blossom was its narrator, the soft, guiding voice that made sure everything stayed in order. Her pink bow wasn't just decoration, it was a beacon, something steady in the middle of chaos. Sometimes, when the city was quiet, Blossom would glide across the rooftops, checking, scanning, making sure all was well, almost like a shepherd counting her sheep. Only these sheep were entire neighborhoods tucked under their covers, dreaming in their sleep. Her calmness was contagious. Even when monsters roared and Mojo plotted, Blossom's voice had that same steady tone, a voice you could fall asleep to, because you knew she wouldn't let anything slip. And tonight, in this sleepy rerun, Blossom floats just a little slower, her eyes half closed, her hair glowing under the moonlight, still watching, still guiding, but softer now, as if even she knows it's okay to rest. Then there was Bubbles, sweet, giggling Bubbles. She wasn't just the cute one, she was the dreamer, the one who talked to animals, who carried her stuffed Octi everywhere, who believed even monsters had a little softness inside them. If Townsville was dark, Bubbles was its glow, a nightlight against the shadows, a small laugh echoing down empty streets. And if you ever watched the Powerpuff Girls at night, you know what I mean. Bubbles wasn't just silly, she was soothing, her voice high and light, almost like a lullaby. Even in fights, she had this way of turning the scary into something almost funny. A monster would roar, and Bubbles would squeak back. A villain would stomp, and Bubbles would giggle. It broke the tension even in the middle of chaos. And for anyone half asleep in bed, with the TV glow painting the walls, that giggle was enough to push you further into dreams. Tonight, Bubbles clutches Octi close as she floats over Townsville. Her pigtails sway like ribbons in water. She looks down at the streets where all the lights flicker like fireflies, and for a moment, you can almost feel her watching over you. The same way you once fell asleep with a plush toy by your side. And then, of course, Buttercup, tough, sharp, the scrappy one. She was the fire in the group, the punch, the spark, the loud voice that said, "Not tonight." She never backed down, never softened her fists. But here's the secret. Even Buttercup had sleepy nights. You could hear it in the quieter episodes, the moments where she'd mutter something under her breath, where her energy dimmed just a little, and you'd see it. Behind the scowl, she was still just a kid who got tired, a kid who needed rest. Tonight, in our dreamscape, Buttercup floats slower than usual, her fists unclenched, her eyes drooping. Maybe even she knows no villain is awake at this hour. Not Mojo, not Fuzzy Lumpkins, not even him. The city is safe. The fight is over. Buttercup can finally breathe. And in that breath, she becomes just like us, letting go, sinking into the night, drifting with her sisters. What makes this segment of our marathon so soft, so easy to sink into, isn't just the girls. It's the city itself. Because Townsville was always alive. The narrator told us so. The buildings had faces. The traffic lights blinked with personalities. The sidewalks cracked like they had stories to tell. And yet, when the night fell, Townsville changed. The chaos faded into lullabies. The explosions turned into echoes. The colors melted into pastels. Even the villains seemed tucked away. Mojo Jojo curled up in his lair, muttering himself to sleep. Him fading into the shadows with a satisfied grin. Sedusa fixing her hair in a mirror before yawning. The city, for once, was at rest. And the Powerpuff Girls, they weren't fighting. They were watching, floating like guardians over a dream. If you were ever lucky enough to fall asleep with the Powerpuff Girls on your TV, you might remember the strange comfort of it. Those bright colors spilling softly across your bedroom walls. The high-pitched voices softened by distance. The way every fight ended not in disaster, but in safety. It was like having a nightlight that could punch out monsters if it needed to. The show wasn't just noise. It was security. A guarantee that no matter how messy the day had been, everything would end okay. And isn't that exactly what sleep is supposed to feel like? Closing your eyes, knowing the world is still moving, but trusting that you're safe. That someone, maybe Blossom, maybe Bubbles, maybe Buttercup, is watching over you. The magic of the Powerpuff Girls is that no matter how wild each episode became, it always returned to the same place. The city, the narrator, the girls holding hands. It was a loop, a rhythm, a dream that never ended. And in that loop, you could rest easy, because you knew no matter how much chaos the villains brought, no matter how many buildings toppled, it would all be put back together. The girls would smile. The narrator would sigh with relief. The sky would glow again. And the dream could start over. The girls hover now, framed by the sleepy moon, Blossom's bow, Bubbles' pigtails, Buttercup's fists, all glowing in the starlight. But their eyes are heavy, their voices are quiet, their movements slow. Because even heroes need to sleep. Even loops need to pause. Even cartoons need to drift into softer colors. And as Townsville settles under its blanket of night, the girls drift too. You feel it. The softness, the safety, the steady heartbeat of a city that never truly ends. That's the end of this stretch of our Cartoon Network Midnight Marathon. The girls have tucked Townsville into bed. The monsters are asleep. The city glows like a nightlight in the distance. And now, the channel flickers. The glow shifts. Something new waits on the other side of the static. What will we dream of next? The static hums. The channel flips, and suddenly, the glow sharpens into something stranger, brighter, but somehow quieter. We're no longer in a backyard cul-de-sac or the city of Townsville. No, this place hums with midnight electricity, wires stretched like tangled dream catchers, neon test tubes bubble as if they're sighing, and somewhere, deep in the shadows, a boy genius is still awake. Welcome to Dexter's lab. The first thing you notice is the glow. Not a harsh brightness, but a soft, eerie light that seems to pulse like a heartbeat. Every machine in the lab feels alive, like it's breathing along with you. Screens flicker, buttons blink lazily, and the great doors slide open with a whisper that feels more like a yawn. Dexter is here. Tiny, determined, his glasses reflecting every flicker of green and blue. But this isn't the loud, bustling Dexter you remember. This is the Dexter who works late. When the world is asleep, his voice is quieter, his mutters softer, as if even he knows the lab must stay hushed at this hour. He tiptoes across the floor, the sound of his shoes almost like raindrops on glass. He presses buttons slowly, carefully, as though afraid to wake the world. His lab is vast, but in this dreamlike midnight, it feels like a blanket fort made of circuits and light. Machines hum like lullabies. A great bubbling beaker sighs in rhythm, almost like a snore. Sparks flicker, but they're gentle, soft fireflies rather than explosions. Even the robots seem to move slower, more like sleepy guardians than mechanical beasts. And then Dee Dee drifts in. She doesn't crash or leap or scream this time. Instead, she floats, almost like a ballerina in a dream. Her steps echo gently as she tilts her head, staring at Dexter's glowing gadgets. "Dee Dee, go to bed," Dexter whispers. His voice isn't angry, just tired, the way a sibling tells another when it's long past midnight. But Dee Dee only giggles softly, twirling her way past the control panels. Her fingers brush across buttons, not smashing them, but grazing them like she's petting fireflies. Lights flicker in response, turning the lab into a cosmic nightlight. The lab feels alive in her presence, but not in the chaotic way you'd expect. Tonight, Dee Dee is part of the dream. She drifts through like a moonbeam, turning Dexter's stern experiments into glowing bedtime toys. And Dexter lets her. Not fully, of course. He still watches with that sharp little frown, muttering under his breath. But the truth is, this late at night, Dexter isn't really building. He isn't really inventing. He's just tinkering, poking, keeping himself awake in the comforting hum of his machines. His inventions tonight aren't designed to change the world. They're small, cozy things. A robot arm that gently stirs hot cocoa. A device that fluffs pillows to the perfect softness. A little machine that projects the night sky onto the ceiling. Twinkling stars blinking down like lullabies. This is Dexter's lab, but softer, quieter, sleepier. The hum of the machines begins to blend into something hypnotic. If you close your eyes, it almost sounds like waves on a shore. The bubbling beakers mimic raindrops against a window. The steady clink-clink of Dexter's tools turns into the ticking of a grandfather clock. It's all rhythm, all routine, the strange midnight rituals of a boy genius who can't quite fall asleep. Dee Dee hums a tune as she floats by, and Dexter sighs. "Dee Dee, you will ruin my experiment," he whispers again, but even he doesn't have the energy to yell. Instead, he leans back in his chair, glasses slipping down his nose, and stares up at the ceiling. The night sky machine he made twinkles softly. Stars appear in clusters, swirling into dream shapes. One looks like a rocket, another like a robot, and one looks like a bed. For a moment, Dexter doesn't look like a genius or a scientist or a master of machines. He looks like a kid, just a little boy who built a lab because the world outside was too noisy, too confusing, too big. A boy who wanted control over something, even if that something was glowing buttons and swirling chemicals. The lab is his comfort, his safe place, his pillow fort. And tonight, the lab is dreaming with him. Dee Dee tiptoes closer, looking at the soft starlight on the ceiling. For once, she doesn't press any buttons. She just lies down on the floor, watching the stars twinkle in silence. Dexter glances at her, frowns, and then sighs again. He presses a few buttons, and the stars brighten, filling the lab with a slow-moving galaxy. Planets drift like balloons. Comets streak like fireflies. Dee Dee smiles, and in that moment, the lab doesn't feel like a place of rivalry or chaos. It feels like a shared dream. The machines hum lower, softer, like a song winding down. The screens blink slower, almost drowsy. And Dexter's eyes, finally, slowly, begin to close. He doesn't fall asleep right away, of course. Genius minds rarely do. But he lets himself drift, just a little, leaning back in his chair, arms folded, the glow of his inventions wrapping around him like a blanket. The lab is dim now, not buzzing, not sparking, just glowing like the inside of a nightlight. And Dee Dee whispers, so quietly you almost miss it, "Good night, Dexter." The machines sigh in agreement, and the screen flickers, static rising once more as the lab fades into memory. But the night in Dexter's lab doesn't end so easily. No, the glow lingers, the hum deepens, the dream stretches. For in this strange place, time moves differently. Minutes fold into hours, and the machines never quite stop. Even as Dexter's eyes droop and his head tilts, the lab carries on, almost as if it's alive. The conveyor belts shift slowly, carrying unfinished blueprints like drifting leaves. A robotic hand waves back and forth, brushing dust from a console. The giant computer screen pulses, softer and slower now, like a heartbeat syncing with a dreamer's breath. Dee Dee remains lying on the smooth metal floor, her hair spread out like rippling pink waves. She points lazily at the twinkling projections overhead, whispering names for the stars she sees. That one looks like a bunny. That one looks like a marshmallow. That one looks like a cupcake. Her voice trails into a yawn, and strangely, the stars on the ceiling seem to change shape to match her words. Dexter notices. He rubs his eyes, pushes his glasses back up, and squints. "Impossible," he mutters softly. "My invention should only project real constellations. How could it?" But before he can finish, the starry sky bends again. A cluster of lights swirls into the shape of his own face, a tiny Dexter smiling down at the real one. Dee Dee giggles, and Dexter frowns in confusion. Something is happening. Something strange, even for Dexter's lab. The machines aren't following commands anymore. They're following the rhythm of the night. It starts small. A bubbling flask releases a puff of steam that curls not straight up but sideways, shaping itself into a floating cloud. That cloud drifts through the lab, glowing faintly blue, until it hovers above Dee Dee like a pillow. She sighs in comfort and nestles beneath it. Next, a mechanical claw meant for heavy lifting lowers itself slowly. Instead of grabbing tools or gadgets, it delicately picks up a blanket from a nearby chair. With surprising gentleness, it spreads the blanket over Dexter's shoulders. The machines are tucking them in. Dexter stiffens, confused, trying to sit upright. What is going on here? Machines do not simply... But the words trail off, because deep down, Dexter knows. His machines are reflecting him. They've always been his extensions, his mind, his hands, his endless energy poured into wires and circuits. And now, when he's tired, when his voice is soft and his eyelids heavy, his machines are tired too. The lab is dreaming with him. The great central computer begins to hum, not in beeps or alerts, but in tones, long, low notes, steady and melodic, like a choir singing from the wires themselves. Screens show no data now, only shifting colors, blues and purples and pinks, rippling like a calm ocean. It doesn't feel like a laboratory anymore. It feels like a cathedral of sleep. Even half dreaming, Dexter can't help but build. His hands move automatically, tools clicking against metal, wires twisting together. But what he creates tonight isn't practical or powerful or scientific in the strict sense. They're dream machines. A box that opens to release glowing butterflies, their wings made of light. They flap silently, circling the lab in slow spirals, landing on Dee Dee's hair before floating away. A strange helmet that, when placed on the head, plays lullabies inside your mind. Dexter tests it on himself just for a second and hears a soft melody, the kind a parent hums while tucking you in. He quickly removes it, embarrassed, but his eyes glisten a little behind his glasses. A tube that sprays not chemicals but warm air, scented like cocoa and cookies. It drifts through the lab like a bedtime kitchen, comforting in ways science can't measure. These aren't inventions for fame or glory. They're small, strange comforts, the kind of things a lonely boy builds when he doesn't realize he's building for himself. Dee Dee, half asleep, watches the butterflies of light circle overhead. "Pretty," she murmurs. "Don't stop." And Dexter, for once, doesn't. He lets the machines keep glowing, keep humming, keep weaving this dreamscape around them. Hours pass, or maybe seconds. Time is a slippery thing here. The lab begins to warp in strange, soothing ways. The walls seem to stretch outward, like the room is becoming infinite. The floor tilts gently, like the rocking of a cradle. Screens project not schematics, but rolling hills, sunsets, oceans, all blending into one another like shifting dreams. Dexter's chair drifts across the floor as if on wheels, carrying him from one station to another without effort. He doesn't fight it. He simply lets himself float, tinkering lazily as machines nudge tools into his hands. Dee Dee's giggles echo softly, slowed by sleepiness, like echoes in a dream cave. She seems less like his annoying sister now, and more like a wandering spirit, drifting through his mind, reminding him of the childhood he tries so hard to outgrow. At one point, she opens a cabinet, and instead of dangerous chemicals or sharp tools, it's filled with soft toys, stuffed animals shaped like Dexter's robots, plush versions of beakers and microscopes. She pulls one out, a plush monkey wearing goggles, and hugs it tightly. Dexter sees but doesn't scold her. Tonight, he lets it slide. The lab is no longer just a lab. It's a landscape of Dexter's subconscious. Part science, part dream, part childhood. That's the end of Dexter's midnight tinkering. The boy genius has dimmed his lights. The lab has slowed its heartbeat, and the night moves forward. The marathon continues. The static hum fades into a slow electric guitar riff, the kind that echoes from a late-night TV commercial you can't quite place. The channel sharpens into focus, and there he is, Johnny Bravo. Not strutting, not flexing, not chasing after anyone down the street. Instead, he's standing in front of a tall mirror in his dimly lit bedroom. The glow of the TV fills the room with soft blue light, washing over the Elvis posters on his wall, the pile of dumbbells in the corner, and the perfectly placed comb on his dresser. Johnny's usually stiff hair seems to sway gently, as if underwater. His shades reflect the television static, little stars of flickering light. He's whispering to himself, over and over, like a man rehearsing a line he's said 1,000,000 times, but can't quite remember anymore. "Hey there, pretty mama. Hey there, pretty mama." But the words sound slower now, dreamier, like they're falling asleep as they leave his mouth. The mirror doesn't just reflect him, not tonight. Inside the glass, Johnny's reflection moves at a delay, then drifts into its own rhythm, almost like it's alive. This mirror Johnny smiles softly, waves, and his voice floats out, warped, like a lullaby on a warped cassette tape. The real Johnny blinks, leans closer, placing a hand on the cool glass. The reflection does the same, pressing palm to palm, but there's a shimmer now, ripples like water disturbed by a stone. The mirror begins to hum, low, vibrating, like a guitar string plucked in slow motion. Neon colors swirl across its surface. Pinks, purples, electric blues. They wash over Johnny's face, lighting him up like a nightclub that forgot it was closed. Mirror. Johnny leans close and whispers something inaudible. The words don't matter. The tone does. It's soothing, almost hypnotic, like a voice you hear just before falling asleep. For the first time in his life, Johnny Bravo looks still. His shoulders relax. His usual dramatic poses melt away. He isn't flexing for anyone. He isn't looking for validation. He's just listening. "Cool," Johnny whispers, his voice softened, eyelids drooping. The room fades into haze. Johnny finds himself standing in a vast hallway. Both sides are lined with mirrors, stretching endlessly in either direction. Each reflection of him is slightly different. In one, he's older, his hair gray, his muscles softened, but his smile calmer. In another, he's a child again, skinny, bright-eyed, before the muscles, before the shades. In yet another, he's a cartoony version of himself, bouncing like rubber, waving like a mascot. The reflections whisper together, layering over one another like a choir. "Hey there, pretty mama. Hey there, pretty mama." But this time, the phrase doesn't sound like a pickup line. It sounds like a lullaby. Johnny walks down the hallway. His boots echo softly, but the sound fades as the carpet grows thicker, cloud-like, until his steps make no noise at all. He brushes past one mirror, and his hand sinks into it like mist. Inside, the reflection moves on its own, flexing and grinning. But the grin isn't his. It's softer, peaceful. Johnny's heart, always racing with adrenaline, slows to a steady beat. Suddenly, the hallway widens into a ballroom. The floor glows with checkerboard tiles that light up in slow waves, pulsing like a heartbeat. A giant disco ball floats above, turning so slowly it looks like the moon itself. And in the center of the room, Mirror Johnny. But this version looks different. No sunglasses, no exaggerated muscles, just a tall, calm figure with the same face, only stripped of its cartoonish bravado. He smiles, not with arrogance, but with ease. "Dance," the reflection says, voice echoing through the neon haze. Johnny blinks. "Dance? Oh man, I ain't no dancer. I mean, I got the moves, but before he can finish, the floor beneath him shifts into waves of color. His boots slide, his body sways. It isn't a flashy dance. It isn't a performance. It's just a gentle rocking, like a lullaby made physical. His arms sway at his sides. His sunglasses finally slip off, clattering softly on the glowing floor. And Mirror Johnny steps forward, placing a calm hand on his shoulder. "You don't always have to perform," the reflection whispered. "You don't always have to be loud. Sometimes silence is cool too." Johnny's eyes widen, but instead of arguing, he lets the rhythm carry him. His head tilts back, his hair sways, and for the first time, maybe ever, he isn't trying to impress anyone. The neon ballroom fades. The colors dissolve into a bedroom, not his current one, but a much smaller, cozier space. A child's bedroom. Posters of superheroes on the wall, toys scattered across the carpet, a tiny television glowing in the corner, playing static. And sitting cross-legged on the bed, little Johnny, 8 years old, thin, round-eyed, with messy blonde hair and no sunglasses. He looks up, startled, when grown-up Johnny enters. Whoa, Mama, it's me, Johnny whispers. The little boy tilts his head. Are you what I'm gonna be? Johnny scratches his head, awkward. Yeah, I guess. Pretty buff, huh? He flexes instinctively, but halfway through, his arms drop back down. He doesn't want to scare the kid. The boy smiles shyly. Do I really grow up to talk like that all the time? Johnny chuckles. Yeah, kid, but maybe you don't gotta. They sit in silence. The TV hums. For the first time, Johnny doesn't fill the quiet with words. He just sits there, side by side with his younger self, until the static turns into soft music, a lullaby made of gentle guitar strums echoing from nowhere. The boy leans against him, and Johnny, larger, older, finally lets his shoulders relax. He closes his eyes. When he opens them again, he's back in front of his bedroom mirror. The real one. The TV glow flickers. His sunglasses rest on the dresser. The mirror shimmers one last time, and Mirror Johnny speaks clearly now. You're enough, even when no one's watching. The reflection lifts a hand, waves slowly, and dissolves into ripples. The glass clears, showing only the ordinary Johnny Bravo again. But he doesn't feel ordinary. He feels lighter, quieter. He whispers to himself one last time, but softer, almost like a prayer. Hey there, pretty mama. This time, it isn't about being heard. It isn't about being cool. It's just a phrase that rocks him gently, like a boat on calm water. Johnny lies down on his bed. The neon afterglow lingers, humming faintly in the static. His eyes close. The TV light washes over him, wrapping him in soft waves of blue and purple. For once, Johnny Bravo, always restless, always loud, is completely, utterly still. And in the distance, faintly, the Cartoon Network bumper plays. The channel flickers. The marathon rolls on. That's the end of this chapter in our Cartoon Network Midnight Marathon. Johnny Bravo has shown us his mirror, the one that doesn't just reflect muscles and poses, but the quiet underneath. A different kind of cool, a nighttime cool. The screen buzzes, shifts, and the channel begins to change again. Static ripples across the room like a wave. Another world waits on the other side. Another cartoon ready to carry us deeper into the night. The marathon never stops. The screen flickers. Not into another show, not yet. Instead, a faint static hum rises, like the sound of a sleepy house at midnight. The colors shift, dimming into soft neon hues, and you realize we've entered the space between shows. The commercial break. But tonight, it doesn't feel like ads. It feels like a dream made of jingles and toys, echoing with the warmth of 1,000 cartoon midnights. A fuzzy CRT glow fills the room. The commercials don't start sharp or loud. Instead, they drift in like half-remembered songs from childhood. A cereal box spins slowly against a backdrop of stars. Not just any cereal. It's a cartoon cereal, of course. The announcer's voice is bold and excited, but softened, as if underwater. Part of a balanced dream. The cereal itself twinkles like candy galaxies, and suddenly cartoon hands, maybe Dexter's, maybe Courage's, reach in to pour milk that glows pale blue. The crunch is loud, crisp, almost too crisp, echoing across the dreamscape. And then it fades into silence. Just static. Just warmth. Just the memory of every cartoon commercial you ever saw when your eyes were too heavy to stay open. Another commercial drifts in. A toy car zips across the floor of your dream, plastic wheels squeaking on clouds instead of tiles. It's the mystery machine, but tiny battery-powered buzzing like a sleepy bee. Cut. Now, it's an action figure. Samurai Jack stands strong, but his sword is rubbery, bending in the breeze. He doesn't fight. He waves gently, almost like he's telling you, go to sleep. Cut. Now, it's a board game. Ed, and Eddie are on the box cover, smiling too wide, but the game pieces glow faintly. Dice roll in slow motion, clattering like a lullaby rhythm. You know these commercials aren't real. They're too soft, too surreal, too soaked in dream logic, and yet they feel familiar. Like maybe you saw them once long ago while falling asleep in front of the TV. The commercials fade into the next thing, the bumpers. Cartoon Network's bumpers were already dreamlike back in the day. Characters from different shows meeting in one place, hanging out in surreal environments, stepping out of their own worlds just for a moment. But here they're softer. Johnny Bravo leans against a wall, but the wall is made of clouds. He strikes a pose, yawns, and the sunglasses slide down his nose. He looks half asleep, like he's been looping through bumpers for too many years. Jojo walks by, muttering to himself, but his words are mumbled nonsense, looping like background static. Then Courage stumbles in, holding a giant mug of cocoa. His eyes blink slowly, dreamily. He doesn't scream. He just sighs, sets the mug down, and melts into the couch. And then the bumper stretches too long, characters fading into static silhouettes. The music slows down like a vinyl at half speed. This isn't just filler, it's a lullaby. Next come the jingles. Do you remember how loud they used to be? Sugar cereals, toys that made noise, theme parks you never visited, always shouting for attention. But in this dream, they're hushed. That cereal jingle plays again, but slower, like a choir humming softly in the background. They're greet, whispered instead of roared. A faint melody of saxophones and soft drums carries it like a lullaby. The toy commercial theme songs, too, half sung, half hummed. They bleed together, forming a strange chorus of sleepy voices. It's not selling you anything anymore. It's comforting you, wrapping you in a blanket of sound, reminding you of a time when even commercials were part of the magic. Now things start blending. The cereal turns into toys. The toys melt into bumpers. The bumpers drift into jingles. The jingles echo into static. The screen feels alive but drowsy, like it knows you're about to drift. You see Ed, with a spoon bigger than his head, trying to eat the glowing cereal. You see Mandy staring into the camera, announcing a toy line with no emotion, her voice flat, hypnotic. You see Courage waving goodbye, as if the commercial break is its own little cartoon. Then the ads start repeating. The same toy car, the same cereal, the same bumper, but each time softer, blurrier, slower, like your brain is replaying them in a loop as you sink further into sleep. The static thickens. The jingles become whispers. The commercials fade like forgotten dreams. And then, slowly, so slowly, the Cartoon Network logo floats into view. Soft, gentle, almost like a nightlight. The break is over. The commercials, the toys, the jingles, they've all turned to mist. And the marathon continues. Because on Cartoon Network, especially in your dreams, there's always something waiting after the break. The room is dark now. Not the kind of dark that feels empty. This is the dark of a blanket fort, of a quiet living room when the glow of the television is the only light left. A safe darkness. A darkness that holds you gently, like the pause between heartbeats. And then you notice something. The channel is no longer just playing cartoons. It has shifted. The screen glows softer, colors melting into one another. The sound of laughter tracks and zany cartoon energy has faded into a low hum, a lullaby woven from static. You've slipped past the regular programming, past even the commercial breaks. You've entered it, the pure sleep zone. It doesn't feel like watching TV anymore. It feels like floating. The screen no longer shows full episodes, fragments. Scooby's paw prints padding across a dusty floor. Johnny Bravo brushing his hair in slow motion. The Powerpuff Girls drifting like fireflies across a starry backdrop. Each fragment stretches and dissolves like dreams bleeding into each other. They're not meant to make sense anymore. They're not meant to keep you awake. They're meant to nudge you softly into the drift. You hear snippets of voices too, not loud, not clear. Just whispers of dialogue from episodes you swear you've seen before. Courage, look. What's up, Doc? Dexter? But the lines never finish. They loop, echo, fall away. The pure sleep zone is built from half memories. Not full cartoons, not commercials, just the fuzzy edges where memory turns into dream. Close your eyes for a moment. Do you hear it? That soft static buzz? It's no longer noise. It's a blanket. The static wraps around you like warmth, weaving together faint jingles, laugh tracks, cartoon footsteps, and the hum of an old CRT television. It's not random. It's patterned, like a heartbeat, like rain on the window. This is what made Cartoon Network late at night so different. Even when nothing was on, even when the ads repeated endlessly, the feeling of it, the glow, the hum, the safe silence between bursts of color made you drowsy in the best way. The pure sleep zone amplifies that. Here, the static is the show. Do you remember those bumpers? The weird, surreal little shorts between shows? In the pure sleep zone, they play again, but slower, dreamier, softer. That bumper with the CN logo floating like a balloon. It now drifts across a starry sky, glowing like a moon. That one where Mojo Jojo shouted nonsense? Now, his voice is a whisper, like he's mumbling in his sleep. That one where Ed was running through hallways chasing candy? Now, he runs in slow motion, never reaching the candy, never getting tired, just looping endlessly like a gentle treadmill of memory. Every bumper, every short, every in-between moment has been reimagined into something hypnotic. Something designed not to wake you up, but to guide you deeper into the dream. It's strange. In the pure sleep zone, you lose track of time. A minute feels like 5. 5 feels like 1. Episodes no longer matter. Stories don't need endings. Time itself is looping, curling back in on itself like a ribbon. You see courage open a door, but instead of monsters behind it, there's just another door. He opens it again and again. Each time the creak of the hinge is softer. Each time the light fades a little more, until finally courage simply curls up beside the last door and closes his eyes. The screen hums, the static deepens, the zone continues. You know that feeling when you're almost asleep and your brain makes up its own stories, blending whatever you just saw on TV into your dreams. That's exactly what the pure sleep zone feels like. One moment, you're watching Ed and Eddie scamper across the cul-de-sac. The next, the cul-de-sac melts into Dexter's lab. Then Dexter opens a door and finds himself in the mystery machine. Scooby offers him a glowing cereal box. It doesn't make sense, but it doesn't have to. This isn't about stories anymore. This is about the texture of memory. The way your brain stitches shows together into something softer, something calmer, something safe. The pure sleep zone is your brain. Cartoon Network is no longer just playing in front of you. It's playing inside of you. The voices are different here. Instead of shouting catchphrases, instead of zany one-liners, the characters' voices are hushed, stretched, slowed. Johnny Bravo's "Oh, Mama" becomes a drawn-out sigh, almost like a yawn. Scooby's laugh becomes a sleepy chuckle, low and warm. Bubbles' high-pitched giggles become airy, like wind chimes in the night. Even the announcer's voice, the classic Cartoon Network voice you remember from promos, has shifted. Instead of hyping up the next big show, it whispers, "Coming up next, more dreams, more comfort, more reruns of your childhood memories." It's not an ad, it's a lullaby. In the pure sleep zone, there are no finales, no last episodes, no goodbyes. Every cartoon loops endlessly, softly, like waves on the shore. Scooby never solves the mystery. He just keeps wandering with his flashlight step after slow step. Dexter never finishes the experiment. He just keeps writing glowing equations that float off the chalkboard like fireflies. Courage never wakes up from the nightmare. He just breathes deeply, curls tighter, and finds comfort in the dream itself. Nothing ends. Nothing begins. It all just is. The channel doesn't need to end. The reruns never stop. The loop never closes. That's the comfort of it. At some point, you're not sure when, you stop watching. The cartoons aren't on the TV anymore. They're around you, inside you. You're sitting on the couch in Courage's farmhouse. You're floating through Dexter's lab, where the hum of machines blends with the hum of static. You're lying in the grass of the cul-de-sac, watching the Cartoon Network logo float overhead like a second moon. You're no longer the viewer. You are a part of the marathon, part of the zone. The pure sleep zone doesn't just show you cartoons. It absorbs you into them. And then, as if on cue, the channel dims again. The characters grow quieter. The static grows softer. The bumpers stretch thinner, like fog rolling across an empty street. Your body is heavy. Your mind is loose. You are slipping further into the dream. This is the pure sleep zone, where cartoons never end, where memory becomes comfort, where comfort becomes sleep, and sleep becomes everything. The glow of the television has softened now. What was once a bright, flickering light is dimming, fading, turning into something more like a nightlight than a screen. The shows have slowed, the commercials have melted, the bumpers have stretched. You have been carried through the pure sleep zone, floated, lulled, rocked gently like a ship at sea. And now, you are entering the very last stretch, the final memory loop. It doesn't feel like television anymore. It doesn't even feel like dreams. It feels like memory. The screen no longer shows cartoons in their full form. Instead, you see flashes, like pieces of a scrapbook flipping too fast for you to grab a single page. Johnny Bravo's sunglasses catching the glow. Courage shivering in a dark hallway. Ed with a jawbreaker too big for his mouth. Blossom, Bubbles, and Buttercup flying against a starry sky. Dexter adjusting his glasses, staring into endless equations. They come and go too quickly to grasp, but it doesn't matter, because you know them. You've always known them. It feels less like watching and more like remembering. The cartoons are no longer outside of you. They are inside you, a loop, a reel, a memory that never truly ends. In the final memory loop, time folds in on itself. A courage scene fades into a Dexter experiment. Dexter fades into the cul-de-sac. The cul-de-sac fades into a Scooby mystery, and then somehow it all circles back. Courage again, the same hallway, the same shiver, but softer this time. It keeps repeating, but with changes. Smaller, slower, sleepier. Each loop strips away the noise, the detail, until only the essence remains. A flashlight beam, a laugh track echo, a serial jingle fragment, a logo drifting. Like waves pulling sand back into the ocean, the cartoons themselves are dissolving into pure feeling. The static deepens here. It's not empty static, it's alive. Listen closely. You'll hear it breathing. Within the static are voices, not full sentences, just fragments. Cartoon Friday. Next on Ed, don't eat that. Scooby-Doo, where are? They don't complete, they just echo. Not meant to tell stories anymore, only to remind. It's like the channel itself is whispering, replaying bits of your childhood as lullabies. The static is no longer between the shows. The static is the show. And then you notice them, the commercials. But they aren't real anymore. A candy ad plays, but the candy bar stretches endlessly, melting like taffy across the screen. The voices chanting the slogan, slow down until it sounds like monks humming in a cathedral. A toy commercial flickers, but the toys don't move. They float, weightless, like constellations in space. An old Cartoon Network promo cuts in, but the announcer doesn't shout. He whispers, coming up next, everything you loved, again and again. The commercials themselves have become dreams. Not ads, not promotions, just fragments of memory, reshaped into gentle echoes. The deeper you sink, the more the loops start overlapping. You see Courage, but behind him, faintly, you see Dexter's lab. Behind Dexter's lab, the cul-de-sac. Behind the cul-de-sac, a cloudy sky where the Powerpuff Girls drift slowly like balloons. Everything is layered, translucent, like you're watching every show at once, but slowed down to a single heartbeat. It's overwhelming, but calming. Your brain doesn't fight to follow the stories anymore. It simply receives them. Cartoon Network has stopped being a channel. It has become a feeling, and that feeling is endless. This is what nostalgia truly is. Not facts, not episodes, not trivia, just warmth. So, do you remember lying on the floor as a kid, TV humming, head heavy on your arm, eyes half closed? Do you remember waking up at 2 a.m. to reruns still playing, your cereal bowl still on the table, the commercials still looping? That wasn't just watching TV. That was memory being stitched into you. Yeah, the final memory. Loop replays that feeling over and over until it becomes its own lullaby. The cartoons are no longer about characters. They are about you. The you who watched them. The you who felt safe in them. That safety, that warmth, that stillness, that's what's looping now. By now, the cartoons barely look like cartoons anymore. The colors have softened, dimmed, stretched into pastels. Courage's farmhouse is now just a shape, a silhouette. Dexter's lab is now a blur of green and blue. The cul-de-sac is just a curved line, glowing faintly. The details don't matter. The essence remains. The glow, the rhythm, the comfort. It's like your brain is turning the cartoons into pure light. Even the characters seem tired now. Courage yawns between whimpers. Ed curls up on the sidewalk with his jawbreaker like a pillow. Dexter sets his pencil down and finally lets his eyes close. Even Mojo Jojo, once so loud, now just mutters softly, words too slow to catch. They are no longer characters in motion. They are dreamers, too. Cartoon Network itself has gone to sleep right alongside you. This is the truth of the final memory loop. It doesn't end. The cartoons don't reach conclusions. The commercials don't sell. The bumpers don't announce anything new. They just exist. On loop. Forever. Like breathing. Like waves. Like sleep itself. It is infinite, and you are inside it. At some point, you don't know when, you're no longer watching it all. You're inside the cul-de-sac, walking in slow motion. You're in Dexter's lab, weightless among floating equations. You're in Courage's farmhouse, the screen door creaking open and closed with the rhythm of your breath. And then, you're not even inside the cartoons anymore. You are the cartoons. The glow, the static, the memory. It's all you now. There is no TV. There is no room. There is no marathon. Only the loop. The glow dims even further. The sounds stretch thinner. The fragments scatter. You're heavy now. Your eyelids sink. Your body drifts. The final memory. Loop has done its job. It has carried you here to the brink of sleep. And as you finally surrender, the channel whispers, the loop never ends. That's the comfort of it. Good night, dreamer. We'll see you in the reruns.